What's going on, everybody? This is Jake from Cinecaliber, and welcome back to my channel. Today's film review, we are going to be reviewing Obsession, the new horror film that was released a few months ago. I have to be honest, this is arguably the best film that I have watched so far this year. And honestly, I think there's a real argument that it may be the best horror of the 2020s. Now, when it comes to horror, I admit I haven't seen nearly as many horror films as I have with action movies or superhero films. The reason for that is simple. Horror has kind of become predictable. Like a lot of Hollywood, it feels like a genre that has been stuck in a creative rut for years. But this year has started to change my mind. Between films like The Backrooms, Hokum, Send Help, and now Obsession, I'm finally starting to feel hopeful again. Not just about horror, but about filmmaking in general. Obsession completely blindsided me. This is one of those rare movies that sticks with you long after the credits roll. It's a film that constantly forces you to question what you're seeing, what the characters are doing, and who's actually responsible for the nightmare unfolding on screen. And after sitting with the movie for a while, I don't think it's nearly as straightforward as it first appears. So let's talk about it. This is going to be more of a deeper dive review, a little different from my other reviews. So there's going to be a bit more spoilers in this one, but I had to kind of explain all that just to kind of get my feelings across for this film because it was just that exceptional. So again, full spoilers are ahead. So we will start with the plot summary. After breaking a mysterious cursed object known as the One Witch Willow in hopes of winning the heart of his crush, a music store employee named Bear gets exactly what he wishes for. Nikki falls in love with him. The problem is that what the Willow creates isn't love. It's obsession. What starts as a dream comes true quickly, and it spirals into a horrifying nightmare as Nikki's affection becomes increasingly possessive, consuming, and eventually deadly. As Bear desperately searches for a way to stop it, he discovers that his wish has unleashed something far more sinister than he ever imagined. So let's get into the film background here, guys. Before I even get into what worked and what didn't, I have to talk about the story behind this film because it's honestly one of the reasons I love it so much. One of the most impressive aspects of Obsession is that it was reportedly made on a $750,000 budget and has gone on to earn an incredible amount on the box office. The director, Curry Barker, who wasn't some established Hollywood filmmaker, he was just a YouTube creator, and that's what makes this story so inspiring. Barker previously created Milk and Cereal back in 2024, which is a horror film reportedly made for only $800 with a group of friends. He was unable to secure distribution, so he released it for free on his YouTube channel. That's a bad idea. Fast forward to Obsession, and suddenly he's directing one of the most talked about horror films of the decade. The idea itself was inspired by the episode of The Simpsons' Treehouse of Horror, which makes perfect sense once you've seen that movie. The premise sounds simple. A guy wishes for his crush to love him, but the film uses that premise to explore obsession, control, free will, insecurity, and the terrifying consequences of forcing someone to love you. So let's get into what was a hit here, guys. The good. Really, the first thing I want to tackle is the technical side. Start with the small things here. For a film that was made on such a small budget, the cinematography, the sound design, and practical effects are absolutely phenomenal. The scenes where Nikki lurks in the darkness are some of the most uncomfortable moments I've experienced in a horror film in years. What impressed me the most is so much of Nikki's transformation comes from performance rather than visual effects. The screams.
You want to talk to her?
Who is that?
Nikki. Do you want to speak to her?
There's the facial expressions, the body language, the vocal changes. It's all Indie Navarrete, and it works. The lighting deserves some special praise here as well. As the film progresses, Nikki is increasingly framed in shadows, doorways, and dark corners. The visual language tells a story all by itself. Early in the movie, Nikki feels like a normal person, but the third act, she feels like a manifestation of the curse itself. So, in and the sound editing is equally effective. The movie is constantly building tension through silence before suddenly unleashing a disturbing reveal.
What the fuck?
Every time the score swells, you know something awful is about to happen, and somehow the movie still catches you off guard. And again, back to Indy Navarrete as Nikki, she absolutely steals this movie. What makes her performance so impressive is that she isn't just trying to play a possessed character. She's playing two characters at once. On one hand, you have the real Nikki. On the other hand, you have the obsessive version of by the wish to create, which was created. The obsessive version that was created by the wish. As the movie progresses, there are moments where it generally feels like the real Nikki's trapped beneath the surface. There's the taped door, the waiting for hours, watching Bear sleep, hurting herself at the party, vomiting, losing bodily control, standing motionless in dark corners. The more the film goes on, the more it feels like Nikki isn't enjoying any of this. She's suffering, and that's what makes her so tragic. By the end of the film, I generally believe Nikki is the biggest victim in the entire story. And then let's also talk about Michael Johnston as Bear. He deserves enormous credit here as well, because Bear is one of the most fascinating protagonists I've seen in a long time. And the more I've thought about this movie, the harder it has become to define him. When the film begins, Bear is easy to sympathize with. He's lonely, he's insecure, he's afraid of rejection, and when he makes the wish, it almost feels harmless. But then something interesting happens. The movie starts asking uncomfortable questions. Bear sees Nikki watching him while he sleeps. He sees her tape the door shut. He sees her deteriorating physically and mentally. And he sees her hurting herself. He sees her feed him his dead cat, for God's sake. He hears her scream over the phone while speaking to customer support about the One Wish Willow. And yet he continues trying to hold on to the relationship. And that completely changed how I viewed the film. Because by the second half of the movie, I wasn't just asking what was happening to Nikki. I was asking what kind of person Bear actually was. So really, at the end of the day, the real horror, Bear or Nikki, this is where I think obsession becomes something special. On the surface, Nikki appears to be the monster. She's the one committing horrific acts. She's the one stalking Bear. She's the one killing people. But the deeper you dig into the movie, the more complicated things become. Because Nikki never chose any of this. Bear did. And while Bear didn't know the wish would work, he eventually learned that something is terribly wrong. One scene completely changed my perspective. When Nikki briefly breaks through and asks Bear to kill her, her existence has become torture. She's begging for release, and Bear's response is, "What's so bad about being with me?" That line hit me like a truck, because for a moment, Bear isn't thinking about Nikki's suffering. He's thinking about himself. And suddenly, all the warning signs throughout the movie start connecting together. Even later, after Ian and Sarah die, Bear still struggles to act decisively. He helps dispose of bodies, he delays going to the authorities, he searches for alternatives, and when he finally decides to sacrifice himself, the movie leaves room for interpretation regarding whether he would have followed through completely. The more I think about it, the less I see Bear as a traditional hero. It's hard to say that he's a villain also. I think he's something far more interesting. He's kind of like a tragic anti-hero whose insecurity, selfishness, and an inability to let go destroys everyone around him. The film isn't really asking whether Nikki is a monster. It's asking whether forcing someone to love you was monstrous from the very beginning, which ultimately leads to Nikki's tragedy. The reason Nikki's character works so well is because the obsession clearly worsens throughout the film. At first she's clingy, then possessive, then self-destructive, then violent, and eventually it becomes almost unrecognizable. Symbolism is everywhere. The me and you pictures, the Hansel and Gretel poem, the haircut scene, the shadows, the cat, the waiting, the self-harm. The film repeatedly shows us that this isn't love. It's possession, it's ownership, it's the destruction of identity. And that's why Nikki becomes such a heartbreaking character. The further the movie goes, the more it feels like we're watching someone slowly disappear. And I found that, again, everything that I've said to be just astounding. This was such a great film. Now, with all that said, that's all that was a hit for me. I would talk about what was a miss, the bad, what didn't work. There really aren't many negatives for this film. My biggest complaint is that I wanted more lore surrounding the One Wish Willow. At the same time, I understand why Barker kept things vague. The mystery is part of what makes the film work. Still, if this ever becomes a franchise, I would absolutely love to explore more stories connected to the Willow and learn how it affected other people. I mean, especially after the customer support sequence, it raises so many fascinating questions about the concept of the One Wish Willow. So I guess time will tell if we will see more from this story. Final thoughts, conclusion. Obsession isn't just a horror film, it's a tragedy. It's a cautionary tale. It's a story about obsession, free will, insecurity, and the dangers of trying to control another person's emotions. As I've stated before, what started as a straightforward horror movie ended up becoming one of the most morally complicated films I've seen in years. I walked away thinking originally Nikki was the monster. Then I started questioning Bear. Then I started questioning everything. And honestly, that's the sign of a great movie. The fact that I'm still thinking about these characters long after the credits rolled says everything. From the performances to the cinematography, from the sound design to the writing, Obsession is one of the most memorable horror films I've seen in a very long time. It's disturbing, it's tragic, it's thought-provoking, and it's a film that absolutely deserved to be talked about. With all that said, guys, I would give this film a final rating of a 9 out of 10. It was really that good. I can't think of the last time that I really gave a horror film a 9 out of 10. Probably either Hereditary or Midsummer, but it's been a while since those films, so... But at the end of the day, that's what I think. I want to know what you guys think. Did you think Bear was a tragic hero? Was he a selfish anti-hero? Or was he the true antagonist all along? Please let me know down in the comments. And as always, if you've enjoyed this review, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you again. And this is Jake from Cinecaliber.